So a few weeks back, VITURE hit me up to check out these, which is their latest flagship offering for their XR glasses, the Beast. And if you remember a couple of years back, I'd already made videos about the VITURE Pro, which were the initial set of glasses that they sent me, and then a little bit later on they sent me a pair of the VITURE Luma Pro, which expanded on the originals with a 1200p resolution and a 52-degree field of view versus the original's 46. And now with their latest offering, the Beast, they're raising the bar even further with improved image quality, a larger display, and a range of quality of life improvements that we'll get to in a little bit. But for now, let's go ahead and take a look at what you can expect if you decide to grab a pair of these for yourself, in terms of what they're going to come with, what the different features are, and what kind of distinguishes them from those prior two models that I mentioned. And then finally, of course, we'll take a look at performance for things like playing games, watching movies, or using them as a productivity tool if you just want a gigantic display to go along with your laptop. But first, let's go ahead and talk about the specs and what these guys actually come with. For starters, they feature the latest Sony 0.68-inch micro OLED panels with a 1200p resolution per eye with a 120Hz refresh rate. And in turn, these panels allow the Beast to simulate a 174-inch screen at about 4 meters, or 13 feet for my fellow Americans, right in front of your face if you want to play games from your Switch 2, Steam Deck, or just plug it into your phone to take in a movie. And thanks to the camera on the front, it is able to track 3 degrees of freedom when it comes to rotational movement, including pitch, yaw, and roll, but we'll get to why that's special here in a little bit. It also features 9 levels of electrochromic dimming, which allows you to darken the image and make sure the screen stays crisp and clear, and I believe I pronounced that correctly this time. I think I pronounced it incorrectly in a previous video, but yeah, suffice it to say, even without having a lens shade on it, you still get a very clear picture even in bright environments. And on the audio front, it still has the same Harman spatial audio that's built into the arms, and all of these features are packed into what feels like a slightly beefier magnesium alloy frame, which is not too dissimilar to the same material that was used in the Mod Retro Chromatic that I mentioned in that video from a few weeks back. Inside the box, you'll find that it comes with a prescription lens insert, along with a range of nose pads so you can adjust the size and fit to your liking. And aside from the glasses themselves, it also comes with a USB-C cable for connecting it to whatever device you need to, and also a very high quality hard case that can hold both the cable and the glasses to make sure they don't get bounced around too bad if you throw it into a backpack, or just to keep them safe from any dust when not in use. But now let's talk about build quality and comfort a little bit. Now when it comes to the build quality, like I already mentioned, it is made of a magnesium alloy, and it definitely feels beefier than prior models that I've checked out from VITURE, but it does still feature the same adjustable temples from the Luma Pro model, which I thought were a nice improvement over the original Pros. Although it does do away with the LED lighting effects that were on the Luma Pros, but honestly I thought was more of an aesthetic choice, I think, and honestly I don't think that's really that great of a loss. Now what might be more concerning is the fact that the USB-C cable they've included is certainly high quality and it definitely has a strong connection into the glasses, but this is also the first model of theirs that I've used that doesn't have a magnetic connection to make this for the video connection, and rather does have just a connection that you plug into it. And that's not inherently a bad thing, but I did kind of like the breakaway nature of the original magnetic connection. Now to be fair, that is a matter of personal taste, right? Some people may prefer a more solid connection. The only reason that I mention it is that at one point while I was doing testing, specifically with the Pro mobile dock that they sent over along with the glasses, is that I actually jerked my head too quick and nearly pulled my Switch 2 while it was docked up off of my desk, which honestly that probably won't happen to most people. Maybe people are just more careful than I am, but it was something that I noticed, and had it been magnetic, that probably would not have been so big of a deal. But honestly, this is a conundrum that probably plagues any high-end electronics manufacturer when it comes to a power or data connection, because you can either have one that breaks away magnetically, which provides some convenience, but at the expense of some occasional irritation where you break the video signal accidentally, or you can have a super solid connection, which is obviously more reliable, but does carry at least a little bit of risk that you might accidentally slide a device off of a table and have it slam into the floor or something. Personally, I think they're both great in their own way, but if I had to choose one option over the other, I probably would choose the stronger connection that I get from the Beast. I think I just need to learn to be a little bit more careful, maybe. And beyond that, it's also worth noting that this does not have any myopia or IPD adjustments or anything like that, but the glasses do come in regular or large sizes. And despite the fact that the Beast features larger and more crisp displays, I don't think that's really where this model shines the brightest. In fact, I really think where it shines brightest is in usability and an improvement on controls, which is what I want to talk about a little bit now. Because unlike the previous models, this one actually features a menu button and a rocker button on both of the arms of the glasses. The left side is used for managing deeper configuration like color profiles and screen size, while the right side is used for controlling the level of immersion. And what I mean by that is if you single tap the R1 button on the right arm of the glasses, this will switch between 3 pretty helpful modes depending on what your preferences are for viewing a screen right in front of your face like this. One of those will be smooth follow, which is kind of similar to what you would get from using a VR headset. Another is an anchored view, which will actually keep the display stuck in 3D space, so no matter where you move your head, the image is always in the same spot, which is probably going to be helpful for people who might have issues with motion sickness. And then finally you have the regular 0 degrees of freedom setting, which basically just makes sure that they stay wherever you're looking at, and they don't do a smooth follow or anything like that. Just wherever you move your head, that's exactly where the image is going to be all the time. And if you double tap the button, you can actually switch between 2D and 3D modes if you are taking advantage of any 3D content from a game or a movie. And when it comes to the rocker button on the right side, this can be used to adjust the dimming, and when you have it totally maxed out, even in a bright room like this, it will still make sure that the image is very visible. It won't black it out absolutely entirely, but it does a good enough job that even in bright conditions like these, when I was testing them, I didn't have any issue making out what was on screen. In fact, I would venture to say you would probably need to be staring directly into a very bright light or something like the sun to really be affected by it, but yeah, suffice it to say you shouldn't have any issues with image clarity that I've seen so far. Also, if you hold down R+ or R-, this will allow you to adjust the screen size and the distance from that simulated screens at the same time, so it really does provide a lot of flexibility for finding the sweet spot that suits your particular tastes. And then moving over to those same kind of mirror controls over on the left side of the glasses, if you hold L1 in, it will actually bring up a whole in-display menu, so you can make all these settings adjustments individually if you prefer to use something like an on-screen menu to memorizing shortcuts for the different button presses. Also, one of my favorite features about the L1 menu button in particular is if you double tap it, it will actually shift the entire screen temporarily to the lower left-hand side of your view, so if you need to focus on something that's in front of you and you don't have the screen totally dimmed out, you can shift your focus very easily to something that might need your attention like your phone or something, and then just double tap that L1 to bring the display back to normal size. And then the rocker on the left side is used to adjust both the volume and the brightness of the image itself. But for now, let's talk about the performance in a more general way, and then I'll sort of chunk down into some specific scenarios where I tried it out with the Steam Deck, the Switch 2, my MacBook, and also my iPhone. And one of the things I really liked when I first fired these up is that it does give you sort of an in-screen tutorial whenever you first put the glasses on and hook them up to a source, where it sort of walks you through all the controls that I've just been going over here in the video. And once you get through that initial tutorial, it's pretty much off to the races, and it is for the most part a very plug-and-play experience depending on the device that you're interacting with. And while it is just as hard for me to film these glasses as the prior two that VITURE sent over, I did try to do my best here to at least give you somewhat of an idea of what you can expect when you actually look through the glasses yourself. The colors remain rich and sharp just like prior models, and the blacks are inky as well, which probably shouldn't be that surprising. But again, there are different color profiles that you can experiment with if you like the image to be custom tailored to be a little bit more to your liking. I personally like a warmer image, so it's not uncommon for me to use the vivid profile, although if you want something that's a little bit more muted like a cinematic profile, you can use that as well. And I really can't overstate how convenient it is to really take in that image when you've got options like slow follow or anchor mode available to you. Depending on your use case, whether you're like laying down in bed or if you're in a situation where you will be moving your head around like on a road trip or something like that, it really is nice to have the flexibility to control how the image is displayed to you. Although I will say I did run into one problem with the glasses when I first fired these up. Initially, whenever I was connected to my Steam Deck, I noticed there was kind of a staticky line down the right side of the display, and that was true whether I was looking through my right eye or if I closed my right eye and looked through my left eye, it was still there. And after I noticed this, I kind of assumed it was probably something that was software related rather than hardware, because it would be incredibly unlikely for two separate displays to have two staticky lines in exactly the same spot. And after doing a little bit of research online, I found a few other posts on Reddit where people had experienced the same thing. They said it was fixed by a firmware update, and true enough, as soon as I updated the firmware, that line went away, so problem solved. All of this is to say you should definitely update the firmware on a device like this after you get it. I just didn't update the firmware at first because I like to see how idiot-proof these devices are, and any included documentation I pretty much neglect immediately. Purely in the interest of testing, not because I'm totally lazy. For the most part. But now let's talk about some of the specific experiences that I had with the Beast and how each one of them shook out. So one of the first systems that I tested was the Switch 2, and to make this work you do actually have to have the Pro Mobile Dock, which they also sent over for me, and this time VITURE also included the Pro Mobile Dock mount, so I could just snap this onto the back of the Switch 2, get the connections in place, and try it out. And I'm happy to report that this worked right out of the box. I did not have to do a firmware update for it, although I probably should have, and I would recommend you do if you buy one of these. And just like when I tested the Luma Pro glasses last year, it still performed wonderfully well. And it kind of put it through its paces. I did try to play a variety of different games that might cause some sort of an issue with the glasses. I played a little bit of Pocopia, Burnout Paradise, Resident Evil 7, what else did I play? The Adventures of Elliot demo. And I was able to get about 2 or 2.5 hours of battery life out of that whole experience, but again, that's going to depend on how heavily you tax the system in terms of how much battery power it's actually going to draw. But the image stayed consistent throughout the entire experience, and I had no real problems to speak of. My only light complaint about playing with the Switch 2 is it does require a little bit of extra work to get that Pro Mobile Dock snapped onto your system and then make the two connections happen, but once you do, if you're on a long car trip or a flight or something like that, and you just want the ability to play your favorite Switch 2 titles in what is effectively a private theater, it definitely gets the job done. And it's for that reason I think I'm a little bit more fond of using glasses like this with something like the Steam Deck, where you can just connect directly to the USB-C port on top without need of an extra accessory. Well, most of the time you don't need an extra accessory. One of the issues I ran into when it comes to the Steam Deck is that if you do play a game that is especially taxing on the Steam Deck, something like, say, Cyberpunk, you will find that if the power draw gets too severe here that you will lose video signal to the glasses, although this is another thing that I looked up on Reddit and I found other people that encountered the same issue, and it's really not a problem with the glasses so much as an issue of thermal management and how much power is being drawn by that port whenever you're playing in a scenario like this. If you're playing a lightweight game that doesn't tax the Steam Deck in a significant way, the glasses should be just fine plugged directly into the USB-C port. However, if you are playing a beefier game that's going to, well, probably drain the Steam Deck's battery anyways in like an hour to an hour and a half, you would definitely want to use the extra dongle that they have where you can actually hook that into the glasses, but then also have an external power supply from like a beefy backup battery or from an AC outlet to make sure you have consistent power going to the Steam Deck, where it's not going to prioritize its own power over sending power to the display that you have on the glasses. So yeah, I don't think it's unfair to say that both the Switch 2 and the Steam Deck kind of have their own unique hiccups when it comes to hooking up to these glasses, but they're not so insurmountable or egregious that I wouldn't want to use them at all. And in fact, putting aside the convenience of using these for things like a long road trip or air travel, I actually just like using them around the house because oftentimes it is more comfortable to just wear the glasses and look wherever I would like, instead of like careening my neck down like this and trying to play a portable device where it's not always the most comfortable. Now moving over to productivity for just a quick second, I will say that hooking up to my MacBook M1 Air was completely seamless. If you plug these into your computer, it's probably just going to show up as a secondary monitor and you can make adjustments as needed. But one of the things that I mentioned earlier that I really liked is it does have an ultra-wide mode, and what it will do is it will actually anchor an ultra-wide display, so instead of just having an extra display on top of your laptop display, if you're looking at the glass like this and your laptop's down here, it's almost like you have 3 displays in front of you. So it really is a productivity powerhouse, and I was completely surprised at how well it handled doing an ultra-wide display off of a single USB-C port on my aging MacBook Air M1. So if you are somebody who frequently travels not only with gaming devices or your phone to watch movies or something like that, and you also have a computer, this is an absolute, well, I hate to say it, but it is an absolute beast when it comes to productivity, because you're not just giving yourself an extra display, you're giving yourself effectively up to 3 extra displays when you use glasses like these. However, if you did want to play games on your phone, VITURE also offers an absolute controller, which they also sent over, which will pretty easily snap around your phone and allow you to have tactile controls for maybe emulators, or really any other game on your phone that typically would use software-based controls. And when it comes to that accessory, it did come with some swappable buttons, and a braided USB-C cable, and some very tiny documentation, which was almost comically small. But I also thought it was really helpful that they included a cheat sheet sticker of sorts that you can put on the back of the controller if you did need to remember certain commands like how to enable gyro, or enable rumble, or anything like that. And when it comes to the build quality of the controller, I would say it's pretty good, but maybe not exceptional. It's flexible enough with its USB-C interface on the hinge that it can accommodate a wide range of phone sizes and tablets, both cased and not cased, although I do wish the spring grip of locking your phone in place was just a little bit more snug. I mean, I wouldn't say it's loose or anything, but maybe it's just by nature of the fact that they have to accommodate so many different phones that it's not quite as tight as I would have liked, but it's definitely perfectly functional and comfortable. Beyond the standard buttons you would expect, it also has home, menu, and capture buttons for navigating its various functions, and a couple of rear paddles that you can customize. It has a power pass-through USB-C port at the bottom, and then also a USB-C port on the right, so you can go ahead and connect your glasses to that as well. Now, I mostly use this with the Delta emulator to test on my iPhone, and I have to say it was perfectly responsive. Overall, it's definitely a solid accessory to complement a VITURE setup, and while the build quality doesn't quite rise to the level of the glasses themselves, it's solid enough that if all you were doing was traveling and wanted a very minimalist setup where you could watch movies or play games and you still wanted the ability to have tactile controls, it's not a bad extra. So at this point we've taken a look at the Beast and the various accessories available for it and some different use cases that might be interesting to you, but the fact remains, should you pick these up? And I would say that just like the prior models of VITURE glasses, the Beast follows in its footsteps by offering a refinement of that experience, and if you're somebody who is already sold on the visual quality but you were just waiting for a little bit more flexibility in terms of how you could view the image when it's right in front of you, the Beast makes total sense. Now if you ask me which one I personally prefer, I probably would go for the Beast, but not just because it's the newest model, because the new features they added to that model really do make a material difference in terms of the comfort of the experience. The slow follow and anchor modes in particular are what really sold me on these, and the idea that I can have an ultra-wide display on top of the regular laptop display that I have as somebody who is constantly juggling a ton of windows on the go definitely makes this one a no-brainer for me. Now, if you want to explore these a little bit more yourself to see if they're right for you, I have provided links below where you can go check out more comparison data over on VITURE's website, and also a link to their store on Amazon where you can buy the glasses either by themselves, check out the other models on offer, or find an accessory package that works best for you. And full disclosure, those are affiliate links, so I do make a little bit of scratch off that, so if you do decide to make any purchase, thank you so much for helping out the channel. Now, I've tried to cover as much as I can here, but if there's something that I didn't really cover that well, or if you have any questions, just let me know in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer those. As for what's coming up on the channel, I will be taking a look at some more new hardware, including the Steam controller, so stay tuned for that. As always, thank you so much for your time and watching videos here on the channel. It really does mean a lot to me. Take care, and I will see you on the next one.